I'm not in any pain now, but I'm also in a lot of pain, because the baby is here. So it's final. It's done. And I really struggled in those first few minutes. When the baby came, of course the room is silent. There's no cry.
It's the politics of motherhood.
Welcome to the Politics of Motherhood.
Because everyone has an opinion about motherhood.
I'm Washuka.
And I'm Lynette.
And Lynette.
Yes.
What is your big win this week?
So my big win this week is the magic of medicine. And we'll talk about this during the episode. But I was in a situation that needed me to take medicine to reduce my milk. And that is a lifesaver. It is one of those things you don't think you need, but when it happens, you're like, look at science doing its thing. So yeah, what about you?
Okay. My big win this week is the fact that I've come with my youngest to the studio.
Welcome,
today.
baby.
Yes. Like, I've never done this before.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so it's such a big moment for me.
It is.
Without my husband, without my nanny, just me and him in the car.
Mm-hmm.
That's a really big win.
It's also very courageous of you.
It is.
I know
right?
myself, and I keep saying I cannot go anywhere with my children by myself. Well, I do go some places with them, but I always have to think about it.
Mm-hmm.
So I can imagine like being somewhere with a small baby, and but we're here in case of anything. Just feel free to,
I know. Yeah. I will ask for help.
Good.
Yes.
Great.
So,
Great.
guys, if you hear some little cute cooing, that's my baby.
That's our little baby
that's
down
our
here.
Little Politics of Motherhood baby.
Yes.
So, Lynette,
Yeah.
today we are talking about something really heavy.
It is.
I don't know if our listeners know, but October is Infant Loss Month. So it's a time to create awareness around infant loss and just to celebrate the babies that you've lost
Yes.
and the mothers who've lost those babies.
Yes.
When we started this journey, Lynette, we were both pregnant.
We were.
We were both pregnant.
We've never seen each other not pregnant. Can you believe
exactly.
that?
Except now.
Except now. Yes.
So you were a few weeks. You were like maybe how many months? 3 months? I think I was a trimester ahead.
Yeah, I remember I was 20 weeks pregnant
Yeah.
when we started recording.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yes.
around that. Yeah.
So you were pregnant at the same time, and something unfortunate happened with you.
Yes.
You lost your baby.
I did.
So please tell us more about that, how it happened, what happened, where you're at.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And feel free to cry. I probably will also cry because it was
I suspect you might cry a little more
yeah,
than I will.
I think so. Because
Yeah.
I remember when you told me the news, I was so heartbroken. I just threw my phone aside and I'm like, no, this can't be happening. It was so far along as well, right? Because
Yes,
you
it
knew the
was.
gender already.
Yes. Yes.
It was far along. Yeah. Please take the mic.
All
Talk us
right.
through how everything went down.
Does this work? Yes. So Washuka, I was I think when we met, I had a normal pregnancy and I was just counting down the days.
You were baby girling, man.
I know.
You're
Yo, I was having time
soft
of my life.
life.
Soft
Yeah.
life. I have 2 other children and this was my 3rd baby. And this is one of those stories you don't know where to start and how to, but I
How it
generally,
goes,
I generally had a normal pregnancy and, everything was going well. I did my 24-day scan and saw the doctor.
24-day scan.
A 24-month, a week scan.
Week scan.
Sorry.
And you did your OGTT test
yes,
as well.
Yes, that's the sugar test.
Yeah, the sugar test.
And when I did the sugar test, I tested positive for gestational diabetes.
Had it been confirmed already, or was
Yes.
it intolerance,
So it was, you see, that's
or
the thing
rather
about
glucose resistance?
It was when you do the glucose test at 24 weeks, between 24 and 28 weeks, you do a 3-hour fasting test. So that is you come in the morning, you they test your blood. So you don't eat for about 12 hours before then.
Your last meal.
Yeah,
dinner
your
time
last
at
your last
9.
meal.
Yeah.
And then they said you can, on at least this hospital that I was going to, you can only do it. No, you can't even have water, but you can't do it after 9 a.m. or so.
Yes.
So it has to be within
your sugar your body starts producing sugar.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it has to be within a very specific period. And I remember on that day when I was going to the hospital, a matatu had hit someone and there was so much traffic, and I panicked because I was like, I need to get to the hospital and do this because I'm starting to feel really hungry. I was 24 weeks pregnant then. So you go in, they draw your blood, do the fast test.
Yeah, fasting sugar.
Yeah. So that's the fasting sugar. So when they draw your blood, then they give you a lot of glucose. It's the
it doesn't make sense how much glucose is in there.
Oh my
Of course, my
goodness.
body is gonna be shocked.
It's a lot of glucose. And I remember when we met, you also had gestational diabetes, and you were doing
Yeah.
the measurements.
yeah.
And
yeah.
I kept thinking about you. I was like, like that looks like a lot of work. Little did I know. So the fast test, so I took the sugar, they did the fast test. I came back and I asked, how was the result? And the lab technician said, if the results were not good for the first one, we would not even go to the second one. So we are fine. Let's do the second one. So you do a second blood test.
Yeah, after
And it's
1 hour?
exactly an hour. And then after the second blood test, you go again and then you come back. So you just hang around.
Yeah.
You're not allowed to take water. You're not allowed to take anything.
Nothing.
And then you come and do the third test. So for my markers, I don't remember exactly what the numbers were, but the third one, the third hour fasting
Yeah.
test was off. So it should have been 8.5. It was 8.7. So when I saw,
It's not too bad, eh?
yeah, it wasn't so bad. So when I saw the doctor, we talked about it, we laughed about it, I was sad about it. Talked about it, we laughed about it, I was sad about it. And we agreed on like the way forward. Although I told her like, I'll go and try to, look at my diet, start exercising a little more. At that point, I wasn't exercising as much,
Yeah.
especially given that I used to be a gym rat. So I was like, soft life. So we did that. And for the following 4 weeks, I was, taking good care of myself, I thought. And I was, exercising. I watched what I ate. I lost some weight, which was like, well, okay. And she had said because of the gestational diabetes, for the next doctor's check, I would have to do a scan because they need to see if the baby is growing too big or if everything is good, with the baby. And so came this week, on my 28th week. I remember I sent you a text and I said, finally in my third trimester. And
Yeah. And before we even move on to
Yes.
that, you also did an anomaly scan at 20 weeks.
I did an anomaly scan, yes, at 20 weeks.
and everything was fine.
Everything was fine with the baby. And I remember during that scan, I had asked to keep, the pictures of the scan. But the sonographer said it would take about a week because it needed to be approved and everything. So some hospitals have their own,
Yeah.
procedures. So on week 28, I reached out to the doctor and I told her I was going to go to a different sonographer because I wanted to do a 3D scan.
3D scan,
yeah,
yeah.
for all my kids, I've done a 3D scan because it kind of shows you the baby in utero and
If they're chubby.
Yeah, they're chubby, they're
Their
moving
faces,
and
yeah,
everything.
the facial features.
Yeah, so I was supposed to see her on a Friday, and I told her I'll go in on Thursday and get the scans done. Is there anything she wanted me to let them know about that experience, to let them know to check for, so that I can make sure that is done, so that when I see her on Friday,
You have everything.
Yeah, I have everything. I
Yeah.
don't have to go in for another scan. And I remember one of the other reasons for me was the hospital I was going to. They have one of those satellite clinics. The ultrasound machine they used, I think is one of those old school ones. So it was quite grainy. So even at the anomaly scan, I could not. I have two children experience. So I could not see as much as I used to see with the other kids. So I thought even if I kept those pictures, they would still be super grainy. So let me go to the 3D scan. Yeah, so then came September 25th, and I woke up in the morning. I was feeling okay. One of the things I must mention, which is what everyone asks you, have you felt the baby move? Is the baby moving? And I used to feel the baby moving every day. There was movement, there was pressure, there was, when I was taking my morning walks, like sometimes as you're walking, you have to stop because you're like, oh, the baby is in a weird position. There's a bit of pain. And I would stop. And I went in on Thursday and I lay on the table. Is it a table? On the bed. And as soon as she put the little probe on my tummy, I remember it captured the baby was sleeping in a horizontal position. The baby was in a horizontal position, but I couldn't see the baby moving. And I remember so clearly, like looking at that picture and asking the sonographer, is the baby moving? And she looked at me and I could see fear in her eyes. It was, and she didn't say anything. She just kept going. Yeah. And the room was so quiet. And I thought to myself, maybe she forgot to turn on the volume for the heartbeat. So everything was just so quiet. And then I stopped again and I asked her, like, is there a heartbeat? I can't hear. Like, are you gonna switch on the heartbeat? And she looked at me and she said, who's your doctor? And I think that is that's the code word for, things are not looking, And I asked her why. Is everything okay? And she said, let me just try to finish. And I said, listen, I'll not hold this against you. Just tell me, is the baby okay? And she said, well, the baby is not moving and I can't hear a heartbeat. Because the room was very silent. Even I could not hear a heartbeat. And it immediately felt like an out-of-body experience. Because in that moment, it's like, you can see yourself lifting out of yourself to listen to what she's saying. But like me, I was still sitting there like being like, this can't surely be happening. And I remember in my mind, I was like, I woke up this morning and I came here. Like I was trying to make sure I wasn't dreaming. Because the funny thing I do with myself when I'm dreaming and if I'm having a nightmare, I wake myself up. I'm always, Yeah, so the funny thing about me is whenever I have nightmares, I'm able to wake myself up. And in this moment, I was sitting there being like, I need to actually wake myself up.
I thought it was a dream.
I thought it was a dream.
Nightmare.
Yeah, in that moment, I'm like, this must be a nightmare. This must be a nightmare. It can't be true. And I think the thing that you think about in that moment is, I have done everything right. Like I have done everything I need to do. I exercise, I eat well, I take my supplements, I see the doctor. I do all these things right. Like, what are you telling me? None of these makes sense. And no one ever tells you that no matter what you do, it doesn't always guarantee a 100% success rate, Absolutely. And I'm a numbers person. So I'm always like, I did this, I slept for this number of hours, I, worked for this long, I ate this much, I did this,
You're managing your diabetes.
Exactly. I was managing my diabetes. I was doing a sugar test every 2 hours and every hour after eating. Like, I was on top of everything.
Yeah.
In fact, I deleted the app that I was using just this morning because I was like, okay, maybe I don't need this anymore.
Yeah.
So then I immediately called my husband. And I was like, you need to come to this place. I hung up on him and I called the doctor. and the doctor did not pick up. So I sent her a text, and she responded and said she was in a training, but she'll call me as soon as she's able to get a break. And I remember, Washuka, like I broke down so bad, because in that moment, you like for me at least, it kept going back to
What did you
I
do
can
wrong?
still feel the baby moving.
Oh, wow.
So it was, this can't be right. This can't be
Yeah,
true, because I can
yeah.
feel the baby moving.
Mhm,
What's going on?
mhm.
And I waited for my husband. As I was waiting, we were in Upper Hill. I called one of the clinics because I knew the doctor was not available at that moment. So I called. I knew that in Upper Hill there's lots of like fertility doctors and
Yes,
stuff. So I called one of the clinics and I asked if I could get an appointment. So when my husband came in, I just gave him the report, and I'm like, we need to go to this place.
What was your husband's reaction? Because I know men tend to keep the emotions in,
Yes,
but I know your husband was really looking forward to this baby.
he was.
as well.
He was, and for me, it was like I was really broken about two things, which is one, my kids were really excited.
So they're looking for names.
We had settled on names.
You settled on
We had
names.
settled on names, and they kept asking like, when will Christmas get here? Because we really want to meet the baby and stuff. And then for my husband, who, you know, when I met him, my husband is generally like a quiet person.
Yeah.
And we like even talking about babies was, but by baby number 2, he was like, let's do this. You know, we're having children.
Yeah.
And this one, he was like, yeah, you know, this is amazing. This is exciting. We're going to have a baby, and this is how we're going to do this. So, but in that moment, he was, I think maybe he felt like he needed to be super strong. It's like, what needs to get done? Let's get that done. Let's move. Let's, you know, we need to go to there. Let's go, you know. So we went to this clinic.
So sorry, before you go on,
Yes.
do you feel like his reaction is what you needed in that time? Did you need the strong man, or did you need some emotional support?
I needed a strong man.
You need a strong man.
I did need a strong man,
Okay.
because I was inconsolable for sure. I needed someone to take leadership in this is what we're doing, this is how we're going.
Yeah.
But also not like silencing you in that leadership, but someone who's like, what do you want to do? That's what we're going to do. I'm going to
Okay.
clear the way for us to do that thing.
Okay. So you went to Upper Hill.
Yeah, so we went to Upper Hill. But before then, I called my mom.
What happened to your car?
No, I did not drive.
Oh, okay.
That morning I was like, no, I'm not going to risk sitting in
good
traffic.
Lord.
Yeah, I was like, just baby girl, you know. So I took an Uber, and I called my mom, I called my sister, I called my brother, and I couldn't speak to any of them. I was just crying, you know.
Yeah.
Because I was like, I remember my brother was the first person I told that I was pregnant. Well, not the first, like the first out of my nuclear family.
Yeah. Yeah.
I told that I was pregnant. And my sister is like my best friend, and you know, we talk, and of course my mom. But I didn't know what I even wanted from them, if I wanted anything, or if I just wanted to let someone know that this has happened. And so we went to Upper Hill, we went to this doctor's office, and we waited. And the nurse was so gracious, because when I told her what had happened, when I went into triage, she cleared the queue and said, just come and see the doctor first.
Okay. So this is you went to a different doctor.
So I went to a
the
different
usual
doctor. Yeah, from my usual, because my usual doctor at this time told me she was in a training, and she would call me when they came out for a break.
Okay, but she was in Nairobi.
Yeah, she was in
Okay.
Nairobi. Yeah.
Okay.
And so we went in to see this new doctor, and she was also pregnant. So at that moment, I'm like, now I can't, like, because pregnancy, sometimes you never know. She could be a doctor, but she's a human being. Like, so I was like, I also need to control myself, just so I don't put her in any like stressful environment. And I'll never forget, like, my report, the first item on the report was no fetal heartbeat detected. And there's there's a finality with that, with seeing that on the report, that is just so heartbreaking. And there were like 3 or 4 other items, and the conclusion was the results are consistent with intrauterine fetal demise. To date, like those words like fetal demise are just, you know.
Small, heavy words.
Yeah, they're very, very heavy words. And so we, I saw the doctor and I just told her, I just need you to confirm the one part about the heartbeat. And I told her, like, as you can see, the baby is actually moving.
Oh, so she could also see it.
She could also see it. Like, I could tell, like, can you see? There's a limb here.
Yeah.
Now it's gone. There's a swelling on this other side. I feel the pressure, and it was like, I feel the baby moving. This is what you're told to always like look for.
Yeah.
And the baby is moving. So what are you saying? So I just told her, could you do a Doppler test? And just give me, like, that's the second opinion I need. That the baby for sure has no heartbeat. And she brought out her Doppler, the Doppler scan thingy, and she put it on my belly. And of course, the Doppler one, like, you can hear there's some kind of alien type sounds, like you're out of space. Yeah. And that's all I had. And there was no, there was just that kind of outer space sound.
Yeah.
And even as I'm lying there, I'm like, but doc, like,
why is the baby moving?
Why is the baby moving?
Yeah.
Like, could you just explain that to me?
Yeah.
To be very honest, the most disappointing part was that in that moment, she said, it's God's will.
Ish.
And I was like, no. Like, be a scientist with me here for 2 minutes.
Yeah.
Just tell me scientifically, why is this baby moving? I'll deal with God later.
Yeah.
I will deal with whatever comes after. But scientifically, just tell me, why is this baby moving if you're saying the baby is actually dead? And she didn't have an answer for that. And so she wrote her notes, and so I asked her, like, so what's the next step for me?
Yep.
Like, what do I do? Like, now I went into that very clinical process of, so what do we do? And she said, yeah, so now we need to admit you in hospital so that we can start the process of evacuating the baby.
Ish.
And
that is so
I told her,
yeah, gosh, that's so inhumane.
It's this process that was very, like, and at a point I felt like she was scared. And I know I was a wreck in that moment, because it's also one of those things, you're like, I wasn't expecting any of this. I'm not in pain. I'm not uncomfortable. I'm not in any way where I can say, this was expected, or this was seen, or I've had these symptoms that brought me here. I'm like, I'm here. I'm feeling healthy. I brought myself, to Upper Hill. I can see the baby moving. You can see the baby moving. So, and I think for me that was kind of, in that moment, my second heartbreak, that no one had an answer for me. And so, so she process. So the process would be, you go in, they induce you. And they induce you every 3 to 4 hours
Ish.
until, you get into labor and you have the baby. So, and I asked her, like, what would happen if I don't get admitted right now? Like, I just found out. And she said, well, because you're not uncomfortable, you're not in any pain, nothing much will happen, but you need to do this soon, because the longer you also sit with it, like, psychologically, it's also going to start tormenting you.
Does it hurt you? Does it hurt your body in any way? Like, does it?
Yeah, because the baby will start
decaying.
Decaying and disintegrating, and then can cause an infection.
Yeah.
So I told her, well, let me, check into the hospital tomorrow morning. In this moment, I need to go home and tell my children, because I also don't want to just, like, every morning. I remember that morning, my youngest, before they left for school, came in and said, "Mama, can I kiss the baby goodbye?" And I said, "Yeah," and they both came and kissed my belly, and they said, "Bye, baby, see you after school." And and I thought how maybe traumatic that would be for them, for me to go back and say, "Oh, we don't have a baby anymore." So I told the doctor, let me go home and deal with my children, and then I'll check myself into the hospital tomorrow. And I asked her, like, can I have a copy of the notes that you've taken from this session? Because I know when I go into the hospital, they might need to, like, see, they might need to know, like, what state I was in and everything. And she said, "No, I can't share these notes with you." And I asked her, like, why? And she said, "These notes I can only produce if I'm sub with a court order." And I thought that was so strange. Yeah. And I say, but they're not about me. Being a data protection expert.
Yeah.
I understand my rights about, like, I'm the data subject here. And they're not about
And
my
your
baby.
right? Yeah.
Why can't you share them with me? And she said, "Yeah, no. We have, regulations that say in this kind of a situation, these notes are very confidential, and I can only give them to you if, I'm served with a court order." And in that moment,
Okay, what kind of court order would warrant?
I suspect, speculation, I haven't even taken time to try and understand that part, would be you go back and maybe sue them and say, "I was not managed properly when I went to this clinic," or "it caused me this harm," or "it caused harm to my baby." Because sometimes things like those can happen. And so it's like, this is for me to come back and say, when you came in, this is where things were. So in that moment, I just thought I did not want to, fight about that too much. I have the report from, in fact, she kept one copy of the report from the sonographer, and we headed home. And that was the toughest ride home. Because for me, it was, how did I leave home with knowing that I was okay and the baby was okay?
Carrying life.
And I'm carrying life. And I remember, like, I had planned my day out. I was like, I'll go here, be done, and then I'll head, back home, get the car and go, and just go on with the day. So we went home, and I remember I was a wreck, like, through that entire, like, I walked in through the door and I just fell down on the floor, and Washuka, I was so sad, I was mad, I was everything. I was everything. And even now as I speak, I just remember, like, this was less than a month ago when this happened.
Yeah.
And anyway, just went home, and my sister came. I think she talked to my husband and found out that we were now home, and she came. And another friend of mine came, and we were just there, and, like, in between, like, at this moment, I remember first when we got home, I kept telling my husband, I feel like I'm gonna die. Like, that was just how I felt, like, in that moment, because it's the kind of pain, like, I think my body was also, my brain, my body was trying to figure out, and I just felt like I was gonna die. And I don't know what death feels like, but it felt like it in that moment. And I asked if he could get scissors and cut my hair, because my hair just felt so heavy. Everything just felt so heavy. I wanted to remove my clothes, but I didn't have I felt like I didn't have the energy to be able to do it. And I just kept begging him, "Could you please just cut my hair? Like, this hair just feels so heavy." And he said, "No, you're fine. You're fine. You're gonna be okay." And then I remember just telling him how much I felt like a failure, because I felt like I had failed, the biggest fail ever. You're like, I've had 2 children, and my body is supposed to know what to do. You're told your body knows what what it's supposed to do, and your body will be fine. Your body this. And for me, I just felt like I had failed. And in that moment, my biggest questions were like, what could I have done differently? But
Would
also,
they have something to do with this?
but also, what did I do wrong? You know, just retracing my steps and trying to figure out, like, what could I have done differently? What did I do wrong? How did this come to be? Is my body failing? I'm 37. Am I actually, too old, for this process? And those are all the things,
No, you're not.
that you're thinking about. And you're like, there are women out there having
Had
children
in their 40s.
in the bush, in their 40s.
Yeah.
And I think for me, it was that feeling of nothing you do guarantees you any level of success, really. And how not in control you generally are as a human being. And I was just thinking, and I remember, like, when my sister came, I kept thinking, like, there are women who are out in the street who sleep, in the sun, in the rain, in the dark,
Who don't
in
have
the
proper
cold,
nutrition.
who don't have any doctors. I was going to a really good hospital, and who don't have any level of support. And, one day you drive past them and you're like, oh, she's pregnant. I wonder how that happened. The next time you drive past and you're like, oh, she had a baby. And the next time you drive, you're like, the baby is walking.
Yeah.
Interesting. And in that moment, and I allowed myself, like, you feel that urge to kind of compare and be like, I did all of this, and there's that woman who's sleeping in the street, and I failed. Not to say that they should fail, but it's like, I
had
failed.
everything. The conditions are right for you to
The
succeed.
conditions were right.
Yeah.
So how did I fail? Anyway, so lots of questions, lots and lots of questions. And in that moment, then you remember, oh, there's this person or this thing called God. And where was God in this moment? Every night you pray for your children, you pray for yourself, you pray for good health. And then that tug of war really starts. Where was God in this moment?
Yeah.
Where was my guardian angel in this moment? Till today, I still struggle with that in a way that I have allowed myself to struggle with it, which is just questioning. So anyway, so we're back home. I'm in bed. My sister and my friend are there. And I, at about 2 p.m., I start feeling like mild cramping.
Ish.
And it was just very mild. And I remember telling them, like, I can feel some kind of cramping. But at around 3 p.m., the baby completely stopped moving. Like, at this point, I could feel the heaviness of the
Death.
baby not moving, or dead baby at that moment, really. And I think for me, that's when, like, I started coming to terms with, this is a reality and this is not a dream. Because I remember when we were driving back home with my husband, I kept asking him, could you just wake me up? Like, just wake me up. Like, I'm unable to wake myself up. Just wake me up. Because in that moment, I was still in this is not true. This, So and he's like, I'm sorry, I'm not able to wake you up. Like, this is actually happening. And so at 3, I was feeling like this cramping, and then at a point, it kind of felt like it was intensifying a little bit. And then at about like 5 p.m., one of my friends, who's also my neighbor, came by with her husband, and my brother had come, and we were all just kind of sitting in the living room, and just like, this has happened. But this was like among the first people that I told. So they came, And as we're sitting there, one of my brothers is a doctor. He's a neurosurgeon actually, and I had tried calling him earlier, and he did not pick up, as it is the nature of doctors, as we have identified. And so he called, and he's like, okay, so he went very clinical. So what happened? Send me a copy of the scans. Let me look at it. Nah. As we're speaking, like, I had to keep stopping. And he's like, are you okay? And I said, I feel like I'm kind of getting into labor. And he said, okay, you need to be in a hospital, right? Because and I don't know, it progressed so fast. The doctor I saw earlier had not given me any medicine. Or anything, because I just said, I'm not in pain, let me just go. And the way I kept talking and stopping my brother was like, you need to be in the hospital. So I don't remember how it moved from me hanging up on him and going to the living room to tell my sister to come help me pack. Hello, not packed or not ready. And the labor getting to like 3 minutes apart. What? In that moment. So I remember just telling her, hospitals are cold, so let's just pack a blanket for me and let's get a change of clothes for the baby. Sorry. And that's all we carried. And my husband came, and as we were leaving, the doctor I was seeing was in a hospital that is, like, of the 3 options I had, it was the farthest hospital. And I remember as we were leaving, my brother said, try go to this hospital that is the closest. And as we got out of the house, got to the main road, there wasn't much traffic. And it was my sister, myself, and my husband, and I told them, let's try get to that hospital because they have my medical records.
The farthest one?
Yeah, the farthest one. They have my medical records. They have everything, and I haven't been to this, the nearest hospital, I've never been there. So I wouldn't know, like, once we get there. And maybe this goes back to how I like to manage situations, which was I need to make sure that, everyone who attends to me knows what they need to know, and that this doesn't go any way it shouldn't go. So we start driving, and at this time, the labor gets to about 1 minute. So I couldn't sit. I was screaming. I was hot. I was everything in between. And I could feel like the baby for sure is coming, and we're in the car, and, the car is on hazards. My sister is sitting on the car door, window down, trying to direct traffic. I'm screaming. So, like, people who are passing by are wondering, like, what's going on? So such a chaotic car. And then it kind of started drizzling. And I remember we got to Riverside, and the junction between Riverside and Chiromo. And as soon as we got there, the lights went red and the policeman stopped us.
Aye.
And I was livid. I was screaming at my husband because I was like,
go.
I'm gonna have a baby here.
Yeah.
And my sister is back on the door and just telling. And interestingly, I think for our safety as well, the back door of the car has child protection. So a child lock, yeah. So she couldn't open the doors, and my husband can come out and open the doors for her. And so she was sitting up there and she's screaming at the cop. The cop is like, what's going on? Because everyone is just really confused. And like, we have a mother in labor. We need to go. And he just came and had us scream. I was like, go, and we got to Westlands. And there was just so much traffic that day. I think because it also just started drizzling. And we got to Westlands, and I remember just saying, I don't think we will get to this hospital. There's another hospital here. Let's just go. And I think for me, in that moment, the pain wasn't just the labor pain. The pain was, this is the end, you know. And that was so difficult, you know, just being like, I've been in labor twice before. But in that moment, you're not thinking about losing the baby or this is not going to happen. But in this moment, it was just so clear that the closer we got to the hospital, and maybe that's why I wanted to go to the farthest hospital, I think.
Actually, I thought of that when you said
it's like let's prolong this moment
for as long as
possible. And so we got to this hospital, and as soon as I stepped out of the car, I was screaming because now I was in super active labor. I was just screaming my lungs out. And we went in through the accidents and emergencies side, which is near the reception. And folks came running out of the reception because I'm sure they were like, yeah. I'm sure they were like, what's going on? And, you know, my husband ran out, brought a wheelchair, and like you, I couldn't sit down. I just tried and stood up, and I was just screaming. And then the doctors ran out of the A&E, you know, room. There were like 4 doctors and came with that stretcher. And even lying down, in a previous episode, you talked about like the bed being flat, and I can feel how uncomfortable that was because it was down, and lying down was just so stressful. And there was a really amazing doctor. I hope one day she gets to hear this. And she held my hand and she was like, "You're here. You're fine." You know. And
did she know what was going on?
No,
okay.
No, she didn't. And I remember I kept saying, "Doc, my baby is dead. My baby is dead." And me just repeating that I'm 28 weeks pregnant, and this has happened, and the baby is gone. Because also as another protective mechanism, I think I did not want them to go into hyper intervention, because in that moment it would be, let's try to save the baby. So I just kept saying, you know, the baby is dead. And we went into the emergency room, and the doctors were so good. Like, they were like, it's okay, just breathe, you're here, you'll be fine, you know. And I kept saying, but my baby won't be fine. They said, and that's okay, because you will be fine. It's not a very fair trade-off, but you're here. You know? So now we need to take care of you, you know. So and the doctors, you know, were saying, you know, breathe and helping me just relax. And then in came this doctor. I will never forget that guy. He just walked in. This is all within like 5 minutes of me being there, maybe 2 minutes. And he came in and he's like, you know, my shift had already ended, and now we have an emergency. And there's a part of me that wants to think that he was trying to be funny, but he looked, you know, he just was like
agitated.
Yeah. And he kept saying, he kept asking like people around the room, like, "Nurse, were you on the night shift?" And the nurse said, "Yeah." It's like, "Yeah, lucky you, you're in the right place. I was supposed to be home. I'm supposed to be home." So at this moment, he's trying to fold his, you know, sleeves, kind of trying to get ready. And he's like, "Yeah, do we have the oxy? Do we have Nini?" You know. And he just kept going on and on about how he was not supposed to be on the night shift.
Where is a nice lady doctor?
She was just holding my hand there and just trying to calm me down. And I think my body was just so irritated with this guy. And I had a pop and my water just broke. This is within like 5 minutes of me
Getting to
being wheeled
hospital,
in.
yeah.
Which means if I had tried to get to the other hospital, I wouldn't have made it. And my water just broke. And I remember just seeing a splash on him. It's not funny.
It
but
deserved
it
it.
was
Hey.
so funny, which
In
and
hindsight.
he just froze. And he looked at me and he looked at himself. And I remember me seeing all the room. I did not think the body was capable of carrying that amount of water.
Mm-hmm.
And it was all over the floor. And I could feel like it was now running up my dress. It was all wet. And
What
then
color was the water?
it was brown. So that is how I knew that for sure the baby was gone. And they had to get all these sheets and put them on the floor. And I remember seeing the water just soaking in through the sheets. Like there were all these brown patches on the floor. And this is relevant in terms of the color of the water, because when your water breaks, it should be clear. And if it's green, then it means the baby has pooped in your,
Distress.
yeah. And when it's brown, it means the baby had actually died, like maybe days before. And at this point had probably started disintegrating. So it was no, maybe back to the doctor, who's now frozen here and wondering like what to do with himself. And I remember, because now with the water breaking, the pressure had eased. And I remember just saying, Doc, I'll buy you a new suit. Just leave your number. I'll buy you a new suit. Because he just looked so distressed about the fact that, one, he's not home, and two, his clothes are now ruined. And the nice lady doctor said, why don't you just go and change into scrubs?
Yeah.
You know, like you can go home in scrubs. And they kind of started apologizing on his behalf. Just being like, no, you don't have to do anything. You're okay. You're fine. So now let's start the process. And then I started shivering so much. And
The baby is not yet here yet.
the baby is not
okay.
here. And this happened also because the baby was breech. So
Breech bum or breech feet?
I think it was breech feet.
Okay.
So the baby, so even with all that pressure, the baby did not come out. And but at least I wasn't in as much pain, but I was shivering the hell out of myself. And as they're trying to change, so they changed, because we're in A&E and the oxy is in labor and maternity, which is in a completely different wing. So now it's like, where's the oxy? We need to get the labor, the contractions back up so that we can get the baby out. And because of the position of the baby, the doctors couldn't do anything. So now it's you and your body and labor. And so we're waiting for the oxy. They've changed and everything. Then the nice doctor was asking the other doctors, like, do you think we can make it to labor and delivery ward instead of like having her have the baby here? Can we get her to the other side? She'll be more comfortable. The midwives are there and everything. She'll be taken care of. And the doctors were still debating, and I said, let's go to labor. In my head, just also being like, I need to get out of these clothes. I need like everything that would make this experience, like I need to get pain meds and stuff. Because earlier on, when now my doctor called, we spoke and she said, in this case, you'll be given pain medication, because we try to also minimize the amount of pain you're going through as especially because the baby won't be alive. So they said, okay, so we're going to run through the corridors just to make sure you get there in good time. Like, yeah, it's gonna be fun. Let's do it. So they covered me, but I was shivering. I was feeling so cold. I felt I was going to shiver out of that bed. And there was 2 doctors, I think 2 nurses and one of the folks that help with pushing the whatevers. And we ran through the corridors, and I just felt like it was taking forever, because at this point now the contractions started coming back up. And got to maternity. I was wearing a dera. They put sheets on the floor. I stood on that, scissors, they cut through like the dera, the bra, and then hooked the oxytocin to start getting the contractions back up. Then when we were there, my sister-in-law came, and with my other 2 children, I've always labored by myself, in the sense that my husband is there, but then he and I have a pact. Like when I say get the doctors, I think I'm gonna poop, you're out of here, because I'm also like, I don't want you to be in the room and then you get traumatized, and then I can't untraumatize you. But my sister is a surgical nurse, so I was not afraid of her being there. I'm like, I'm sure you've seen worse, because she does like neurosurgery cases and spine cases and stuff. So, and then my sister-in-law came, as she's had 2 children. I was like, hopefully you can handle this. And I kept begging the nurse for pain medication, because I was like, the doctor said I will get pain medication. And the nurse was like, you're back in labor, and even if I give you pain medication now, it's too late. It won't kick in until like later. And I was like, I don't care. I just, when you're giving birth, sometimes they give you that gas. I forget what it's called, and the gas doesn't quite help with anything. But it kind of manages your brain to be like, I'm taking something, At least in my case, the gas never helped. So, and I said, okay, maybe that will tell my body that we have some pain med in us, we're fine. So she went and she took what felt like forever to get me that pain med. So she came, no, it was an injection. When she came with it, just as she's about to inject me, another nurse came in and was like, nurse, the delivery in the next room, it's happening, come. So she's standing there frozen, kind of trying to, do I go? Do I inject her? And my sister-in-law kept screaming like, just inject her. Like, just give her the medicine and then you can go. And then she's like, let me come back. And she went and put the syringe down and left. I was like, oh gosh, this is just gonna be forever. This is gonna take so long. And she went, and in a few minutes she came back and injected me, and then just as she was leaving, now I was like, I can feel the baby is here. And I told my sister, like, get the nurse, because earlier on we'd asked like, hey, is the doctor going to come? And the nurse said, yeah, because of the position of the baby, the doctor can't do anything, So now it's just you and your body to work through this. So I told my sister, get the nurse. I think, the baby is coming. And as she got to the door, like I had her open the door, and as she was screaming at the nurse to come back, with all that pressure, just, the baby came out. And I think for me, it was just that mixed reaction of, I'm not in any pain now, but I'm also in a lot of pain, because the baby is here. So it's final, it's done. And I really struggled in those first few minutes. When the baby came, of course the room is silent. There's no cry. There's just I had asked, to not see the baby, because it's one of those things that you think you're very strong until you're faced with a battle where you need to be strong. And remembering, even now, just remembering the scan and seeing how lifeless my baby was,
in the scan is still so etched in my mind, and I feel like I can't get over that. And so I knew if I saw the baby, I would not be able to function. And so they cut the cord and wrapped the baby and pushed on my belly. The placenta came out, and they asked, like, would you like for us to do a postmortem on the baby? And I said no, because I was like, she's so small. It was a girl. And even if I found out what was happening, I feel like I wouldn't also live with myself knowing that she had gone through maybe all the dissecting and all the probing and doing all those things. And I said no, and they asked if they can do like the whatever on the test on the placenta, and I said yeah, that they can do, because that they do anyway, because they check the placenta, just make sure it's the placenta is okay and stuff, or any issues. So the kind of the postmortem on the placenta. And then they're like, fine. And then they so in the delivery rooms, there's the baby warmer. Like after you've had a baby, they would normally like have where the baby is placed for the pediatrician's test. So they placed the baby there, but they didn't. Well, of course they didn't put it on. So it was silent, and I remember that was the most difficult moment as well, because you're in the room, just you and the baby. And yeah, in this moment, like my husband was trying to get admission. Dad, why do admissions in hospitals take forever? Like, it felt, because in that moment I needed him, but he was still doing admissions, dealing with insurance, and insurance is trying to call my phone for approvals, and he has my phone, but my phone is on do not disturb. So in the evenings my phone goes on do not disturb from 6 p.m. So the calls are not coming through. Like later is when I saw all these missed calls. So I have never figured out how they sorted it out, but they somehow did. And when he came, like we had our moment, and even when he came, he wasn't done with admission. Still like going. This had been like an hour since we got into the hospital. So it just felt like it took so long, because in this moment it's also like you feel so alone. Of course I have my sisters there, and but it's you are in the room with the baby. So when my husband came, I just told him, can you please ask them to come and take the baby away, because I can't be in the room with her body. And so he left. He went to take care of that. Then the doctor came, and he came, and we had a chat, and we talked about different things in that moment. There's so much you can say about the baby. So it's like, yeah, this has happened, and we have to do the tests and then figure out like what happened. And I asked him, can they please take away the baby? He said, yeah. While of course that is your wish in this moment, we also need your husband to consent to that. Because he's also, and I found that really, really good, because in that
Very
moment,
considerate.
in that moment when you're breaking, you're thinking about yourself. And even when we had the 2-week post check, like the doctor took a moment and asked like, hey man, how are you doing? And it wasn't, this is all about the mom. It's also, there's another parent in this situation. Yeah, so the doctor said, they'll wait for my husband to consent, because if he wants to have a moment with the baby, if he wants to hold the baby, whatever he wants to do, that will also be respected before they can take the baby away. So we had a chat with the doctor, and when that was done, he left. And then when my husband came, I let him know. Like, there was so much happening that in that moment you can't even be like, the two of us talk to us. Like, he's trying to deal with all these other things and stuff. In my head, I was like, the kids need to go to school tomorrow. You need to go home. And, it was like all these things that happen. Luckily, because this had happened, so I think in previous episodes I've mentioned that my nanny does not, sleep in. So because this happened when she was still around, I asked her to, spend the night. And he came. He for sure had his moment with the baby, and then they were able.
Oh, so your husband saw the baby?
Yes, he did.
Okay.
And then they came in, and no, they didn't even come at that time. So at a point, I kicked them all out. Like, husband, sisters, I was like, y'all need to be home. Like, I know there's a lot going on, but it's also, me as who I am. You have a small baby. You have 2 small children. You have 2 children who need to be in school tomorrow. Like, go. And I also think as much as I did not want to admit it, I needed a moment of silence, because since I found out, I hadn't had like a moment of just being myself or being by myself. Mm-hmm. And then later the nurse came, and I asked, can I please get like a room away from the maternity ward? And they said, yes, that's what we're going to do. We're going to just take it to the general wards rooms and stuff. And then they wheeled me away. And it was very difficult for me in that moment as they wheeled me out and like leaving the baby there. Then in that moment, it was like, oh my goodness, like, am I doing the right thing? Am I making the right decision? And I don't know what the right decision is. Is the right decision putting the baby back in my belly and trying again, trying to see, it's all these, they somehow feel like stupid thoughts, because logically some of these things are not possible. And kind of trying in that moment to go back to, what could I have done differently? Maybe. But it has happened. And then thinking about like, how do I go back to my kids and how do I tell them? So on that day, because this was still the Thursday, when the kids came back home from school, I sat down with them and I let them know, that this has happened. And I remember my oldest, she's 5, just saying, but Mama, what if you take your medicine? Because in that moment, I didn't tell them that the baby has died. I just told them, the baby there's something really wrong with the baby. And unfortunately, she won't make it. And so she was like, but what if you took your medicine? So she pointed at my supplements. Would the supplements, would that medicine help the baby? And I said no. And she asked why. And I told her, because unfortunately the supplements are not strong enough, to help the baby. So I said, so tomorrow I'll go, to the hospitals and the doctors will take the baby out. And because at this time I wasn't I didn't know I was in labor. So I was like, yeah, tomorrow when I go, but today we can, spend time and you can just have a last hangout with the baby. And then she asked, but if you go to the hospitals, can the doctors do something? Can the doctors help? And I said, unfortunately, no. So I realized that no matter what I told them, they would try to find a ray of hope somewhere. And so I had to tell them, yeah, unfortunately, the baby has died and she won't be able to come back.
And they both just started crying so much and saying, but we've waited for so long for this baby, and we were really looking forward to, our baby sister. Are we going to have another baby sister? And, and for me, that was very difficult, because it was also questions at that moment that I was battling with, like, do I even want to have another baby? Is it too soon to start thinking about these questions? Is it too late? Is it, do I even want to be thinking about this? Like, how do I feel? I don't know how I feel. Everything was just really confusing. Anyway, so I was, when the doctor had come after the baby was born, he checked and he said, yeah, everything looks fine. And if by tomorrow you're still feeling okay, we will be able to discharge you tomorrow, so we don't keep you here any longer than you need to be. So yeah, so I was wheeled to the general ward. I had this room that thankfully was dark, and it was just that moment that just felt so, you kind of start hearing the phantom cries of a baby, and because your body knows, we've given birth. So, and that first night was really difficult. It was, because I guess there are many questions, and for me it was, so how do I present myself to the world?
Mom of 3, mom of 2.
Yeah, there was that question. Yeah. Am I a mom of 3? Am I a mom of 2? Am I, like, what am I? And fast forward, and I'll go back to when we saw the doctor. So there's a form you fill when you see the doctor, and there's a question about, like, how many, well, they use a scientific word, which I asked the receptionist, what does this mean? And it's like, how many children do you have? And I put 2. And when we went in to see the doctor, so this was the doctor that saw me after delivery, I noticed that he changed the form and put 3. And because it was, for the 2 weeks, it was a question I really battled. It's like, how do I present myself? Am I a mom of 2? Am I a mom of 3? But if I say a mom of 3, then I have to qualify and explain, and and if I say a mom of 2, am I denying this other child? Like, it's still a question whose answers I don't have. But it's also if you say a mom of 3, who says you have to explain it? And how does that look like? And why do you have to explain it? But why don't you explain it? And, so anyway, so managed to get some sleep, because I was also really tired in that moment. By the time I was getting to the general ward, it was like 2 a.m., and we got to the hospital at 7. So, it just felt like time had really gone by so fast. And, managed to sleep, woke up, and my husband came, and I saw a psychotherapist. The hospital said it was one of the conditions for me to be discharged. And she came and we spoke, and she was really good. I'll first say that. But there's a thing about that moment where you are battling with God, and then everyone keeps saying it's God's wish, it's God this and God that.
Yeah, that's not what you need.
And in that moment, I'm like, oh gosh, can we just be scientists for a few moments? Like, because the thing I ask is, what was this, or what is, because I still haven't seen it, what's this thing that is so much bigger than this child, that one day I'll look back and say, oh, I'm so glad I lost that baby, because if that baby had survived, what's this thing? So when you're saying it's God's will, it's God's wish, what does that mean? And even after, like, when folks have asked, like, are you willing to see like a therapist or stuff? And I feel like I might have questions whose answers no one would have. And I also do acknowledge that would be very unfair to them, like going in with these questions and having these expectations, and then they probably don't have answers to them, because beyond probably the clinical and the academic, they've maybe never lost a child, and they might not know how that feels. Because I feel like what I needed was for someone to just be like, listen, this has happened. This is what you'll expect in the next 2 weeks. These are again, as I said, I'm a very data and statistical person. This is the graph. These are the downs. These are the highs. This is what everything means. So that when I feel a certain way, I know, okay, in that chart, I'm at this point. I'm heading to the peak. Or one day I'm feeling extra happy. It's like, in grief, when you're extra happy, you're at this peak. But prepare yourself, you're about to go low. And the low today might not be like the low yesterday. And maybe I need to chat that down and share it with the world. I don't know. But that's what I was expecting. Because I spend a lot of time looking at statistical abstracts and economic surveys and things, and you can explain everything that is happening with a mathematical formula. And I'm like, why can't someone explain what's happening to me with a mathematical formula and a beautiful chart? And I'll, and no one had that for me in that moment. And I think that was also quite difficult, because I was like, I need that. I need to know where I'm at right now. As you're told, you're in the first trimester, this is what to expect. You're in the second trimester, maybe there needs to be, you're in the in-between trimester where you'll be stuck in, for a while. And as you can tell, I'm still very upset about a lot of these things not existing. But yeah, so we left the hospital. Also, being discharged is another full day affair in hospitals.
I know.
I'm like, how did we start this in the morning and now it's time to go pick the kids from school? But it was generally a good experience in terms of like hospital stay and the process. I knew that discharging takes a really long time. So, that happened. So we left and headed, we went and had lunch. Interestingly, remember I said with my first one, I wanted to go have a burger when I was in labor.
Second one was bhajias.
Yeah, second one was bhajias, which we never had. And I think in my head, I was like, third one, I'll still have my bhajias. So when we left the hospitals, we went to Parklands.
Wow.
And had bhajias, But it was very difficult. I remember at a point, I just went back to the car and sat there because I was like, I don't care how good the bhajias are, they would have been better if I had my baby. But then we went to school, picked the kids up. They were happy to see me, and we went home and kind of just started that recovery journey at that point. I think for me, the thing that has really helped in the last few weeks has been the outpouring of love that I have seen from friends, families, family, work colleagues. I did not imagine that possible, because I remember in one of the episodes we talked about loss and, do you tell people? Do you not tell people? And I'm here to confirm that. Tell as many people as possible that you are pregnant.
For that support in the event.
Because when it happens, because I asked myself, I have a friend who lost like a pregnancy at 8 weeks. You talked about your miscarriage at 8 weeks. And I asked myself, is it any less painful when it happens at 8 weeks than, and maybe I should stop for a moment.
I was asking myself the same question. And I had to catch myself from invalidating what I felt as well. Because I felt, or I still feel like your pain is greater because you had to actually push a baby. At 8 weeks, yes, you go through the cramps, the baby just comes out, as in there's no opening up of it. Like the baby just comes out. And it's not any less painful, but it feels like yours is so painful. I don't know how, I was trying to think about it and just trying to see which is more painful. But honestly, I feel you can't invalidate anyone's pain.
Yeah.
I can't say which is more painful than the other. Honestly, I can't say for a fact which is more painful, but I feel like yours is really hard.
It's a tough one because
It's
as
really
you're
hard.
saying,
Like your baby was like you knew the gender, you had a name, like
yeah.
the baby had feet.
Babies survive
hands,
from
like-
24 weeks, 25 weeks.
Mm.
You know, at a point my aunt called me and said, "Oh yeah, you know your cousin, she's much older than I am. She was born at 25 weeks in the 70s." You know,
Like your baby could have survived.
exactly.
Yeah.
If this was something else, like the baby could have survived. And yeah, like when you're delivering, it's a whole like they have to check how dilated you are. They have to come and, you know, do everything.
It's a whole process.
It's the entire process of having a baby, really. And yeah, and for me, like seeing how, like my house, I love flowers.
Yeah.
And my house was full of flowers. Like people were sending flowers and gifts and care packages. And, you know, there's a neighbor of, like, there's my neighbor where we live and a neighbor, like, where we're doing some construction. And I told her, and she showed up the same day with her husband. And like people showed up.
Yeah.
At a point, I do feel a bit guilty because I had to also manage. I was like, I also need a moment of silence. But in that moment, also not taking it for granted that people are stopping their days to show up. And people shared stories. And for me, it's so heartbreaking to know how many people lose children. Like not statistics that you read about in reports, but like people you know.
You can put a name to the face.
Like I was with that person last week. There's a case, you know, you're talking to someone and they're like, yeah, when my baby was a year and 2 months, he died. And you're like, what? You're alive. Like you're walking around the world like everything is okay, you know. And it's in that moment, the things you don't think about as much, where you would see someone with one child and that child is like 11, 12, 13. And in your mind, you might be like, oh, why don't they have another baby? Or why didn't they have another baby? And then you're told that that person lost 6 pregnancies. And you're like, they went through 6 losses, like 1, 2, 3, 4, all the way to 6. Or, you know, I was talking to a friend the other day who said, you know, she lost the first 2 at birth, like at term. 40 weeks, you're in labor, you go to the hospital. The first one lost, the second one. Number 3, she says the husband said, we are not carrying any bags because let's just go.
Guy.
Number 3 survived. Number 4 died. Then she went on to have 3 others. So she has 4 kids, but she's had 7 pregnancies. You know, and the number of stories, because like in that, the first 2 weeks when I was trying to find like resources about child loss, as you said in another episode, it was everything you find is in the US, in the UK, there are not many documented stories locally.
there are a few, then you dig up until you meet someone who's like, oh, this person has done a podcast on this and stuff. And
There's one,
and that for
comes to
me
mind.
also made me so mad. It's like, why don't we know? It will not lessen the pain that we know that women lose children. But maybe if we knew a lot more about this, maybe something could be done. But having said that, doctors in Kiambu are on strike. And one of the big news headlines was 136 children have died during this time that the doctors have been on strike. And it was a headline and life moved on, And I'm imagining there's a mother who's feeling how I'm feeling. And it's a headline and we've moved on. So for me, that was also very, very difficult. Just moving beyond my own pain and my own grief to there are women who are just alive and surviving, and they've lost 1, 2, 3, 7 children in the process of being alive, in the process of like wanting to be mothers. And of course, those are the moments you're like, I wish I had all the resources in the world to dedicate more into, identifying what's going on, and why, like, even with the best care. Because a lot of times when you hear about maternal and infant mortality, it's from a point of in villages where children, where mothers are not getting the best healthcare, where you don't have good hospital distribution. And that's the political part. That's the political part of this. But then I think of myself and the people around me, and I'm like, I had a really good doctor. I went to a good hospital. I was taking, top of the line supplements.
Head food.
Exactly. I was eating good, healthy food. But then this also happened to me. This is happening to, other mothers who have access to the information and to the knowledge and to all of that. Anyway,
So how's because I think you can term it as you're in postpartum.
yes, technically,
Yeah.
I am.
You at the beginning of this episode you spoke about milk suppressants.
Yes.
Could you tell us how the journey has been for you? Because it seems like your body recognized it has given birth, like something has happened, and we should be working to produce milk to give nutrition to this baby.
Yes.
But there's actually no baby.
That
So-
was one of the most difficult parts. As anyone who's given birth knows, you give birth and you forget about the labor. You of course have to deal with healing and stuff, but you give birth but after that, one, the physical changes in your body reminds you so much of what you've gone through and
The
that your
loss
result
you've gone
is a loss. So one, like your tummy starting to go back down
Yo,
and you look at yourself in the mirror and you're like,
you're still looking pregnant.
you still look pregnant, you have your black line or you look like you've had a baby and you have your black line there still reminding you very much that you were pregnant.
You once carried life.
And that life is not here. The second part is the milk. So immediately I give birth on Thursday. Saturday night, I remember was it Saturday or Friday night? Saturday morning I woke up and my breast tissue goes to under my arms.
Yeah, you mentioned that in
and
the first
with
episode.
my two other children, like when the milk comes in, it goes all the way there. I remember waking up because I think my brain had switched off that could happen, and I was also given the medicine to take, so I had taken the medicine. I was like, oh, so maybe I won't experience it. My boobs were so full, my underarms were heavy and swollen, and I immediately reach out to my doctor, who's like, do not express, do not do anything. just cold compress, wear a very tight bra. Because as soon as you try to remove it, your body is like, oh, there's a baby who's feeding. So the next like 4-5 days was so tough, because then I had to get another dose of the medicine to try and suppress the prolactin, so that like the milk reduces. I had to sleep in this really tight bra for the 4-5 days. At the same time, you are in a diaper because
Wait, no.
Oh yeah.
Oh no.
It's the entire experience. I literally TMI
No.
stopped bleeding like a week ago.
No.
Yeah. So you're going through the entire process of, you're bleeding. So you're in diapers. You're like, it's the entire process minus I have a baby. So in this moment,
That's
I
messed
still
up.
have to keep
That's messed up.
measuring my sugar because diabetes. Like I went through that entire experience. And then the thing I did, so for any mom out there, baby with us or not, is again, your body is like, there's no baby, so I should go back to normal. But I went through like 4 hours of labor. So I was back to like sitting and walking, not like actively walking, but like I'm all over the place. And a week in, my back was in stitches because my back had gone through the entire experience of labor. And my mind had blocked that. And I kept being like, my back really hurts. And then, in fact, it was my nanny who said, you gave birth.
You did.
You need to sit down and you need to lie down and rest.
You'd have actually been given full maternity leave.
If
you are working.
I
formal
gave
work
myself
setup.
like the
Yeah.
full,
3 months.
exactly. And it's that moment that it hits you, that because in that moment I think you're trying to erase everything to just be like, I need to not feel how bad I'm feeling right now. So yeah, so like having to go back to like bed rest, and I had to stop taking warm water because
It was
warm water
stimulating milk.
stimulates. So I went back to my water has to be very cold. Reduce the eating because then you're feeling warm and fuzzy, and the milk is coming in. Anyway, yeah. So it was a lot of things, and to anyone going through this, it's that reminder that you need to also be kind to yourself. Allow people to love you. Allow people to pour into you. Allow yourself to cry and to be upset. As I said, I'm still battling my relationship with God at the moment. And during that time, the one thing, like I kept remembering, like this song suddenly, which was a hymn from high school, Master, the tempest is raging. And I must mention, I'm not a very religious person, by the way. But in this moment, that's the only song that was in my head. And that song says, carest thou now not that we perish, and how can thou lie asleep? And it was like, how can you be asleep when I'm going through this rage and terror and things? And that moment when you've been told, or you hold in your head that I'll just say peace be still and everything will be still. But this moment when I'm saying peace be still, nothing is happening. And how could the master sleep through this? And how could you wake up like after the terror has happened? And for me, those really are like the physical. Now when people ask like, how are you? I'm like, I'm physically fine. In fact, that has been my response. I'm physically fine. I can't say I'm fine because I'll be lying. I'm physically fine. Emotionally, I'm a day at a time. I'm allowing myself to be sad when I'm sad,
Yeah.
to be happy. And at a point it was tough because I asked my kids, is there anything you want to ask me? Just allowing them to also, you know. And both of them independently would say, Mama, are we going to have another baby? And I was like, can I think about it? I'm not sure yet. I don't know. And one at a point was like, can we tell Santa to give us a baby for Christmas?
Oh.
And I was like, wow, that's sweet. That's cute. But I don't know. Like, it's one of those like foresight, like knowing what I know now. Am I willing to put my heart, not even just my body can, but am I willing to put my heart through that? Knowing that you have no control, you can create the most perfect conditions, but it might not do much for you, you know? You know, when we were going to the hospital for the post-op, you know, check, and the doctor said, yeah, he brought it up. I wasn't going to bring it up. He brought it up and he said, if you want to have another baby, you know, there's no saying, you know, wait for this amount of time and stuff. It's after you've had your first period. If you want to try, you can start tracking and then try. And like, but for, you know, the next pregnancy, here are the interventions. Here are the things that we will do to try and, because they did, you know, the test on the placenta.
Oh yeah. If you should have mentioned that.
This story is all over the place, but I hope you. And they said there was an issue with one of the veins that was not supplying enough blood, you know, to the baby, so there wasn't enough oxygen. And for me, that's just kind of the worst prognosis, I would say, because it's also like you, at any given time, you'd be like, "Yo, placenta, are you doing your thing? You know, are we okay? Are you like it's not that, it's that thing that you can see." I think you educated me. I have completely forgotten that there are things you can see on the scan, but it's also like in between scans, you're like, so do I know if it's happening? It's not happening. But kind of to start closing it up, it was for me the thing that has really helped me is talking to people.
Yeah.
Just sharing this story, but also people sharing their stories and people just being like, yeah, this is what happened to me, or this happened to this person. And I guess, as I've said, being mad at the fact that even in this moment, we don't have the best answers. But also just allowing myself, you know, to be. And at a point I asked my husband, like, do you want more children? Like, let me see where your head is at. And he's like, well, there's a time we said we wanted 4 kids, so you let me know if you're
Up for it.
So I still don't know. There are days I wake up and I'm like, yeah, I would still want to have more children.
Yeah.
Especially having talked to people who've lost multiple children and they still went on, you know, to have children. And there are days I wake up and I'm like, I look at my kids, I'm like, I have 2. Look at how beautiful they are.
Yeah.
Look at how, you know, they fight often, but look at how amazing.
Part of growing up.
Yeah, they're alive and they're healthy and they're
Yeah.
intelligent and, you know, and
So are you, part of your healing journey, are you planning to seek therapy? Because when you try again, the next pregnancy will be anxiety induced.
oh, it will be. It
Like,
will be for sure.
Every single week you're like, oh, okay, we've gotten through that week.
Yeah.
Then it gets to when you lost your baby at 28 weeks, you're like,
Get
oh
into
my
that
gosh.
28-week mark.
Yeah.
Yeah.
so how are you planning to navigate that emotionally, mentally?
Knowing myself. It's good to know thyself.
What numbers are you gonna make up later?
Yeah. Knowing myself. I'm honestly not there yet.
Okay.
I haven't made that decision. I've thought about it.
Of therapy.
Yes.
Okay.
But maybe knowing, and I must mention, we live in an AI world. ChatGPT has been very useful to me because I've been able to ask, because with ChatGPT, you can say, hey, or
I've gone through
with
this.
AI. I've gone through this. Here's what
Behave like my therapist.
here's what I've gone through. Here's what maybe the result says. Can you explain this from a scientific point? And even the first scan result, I asked it from a very scientific point. I was like, look at each of the outcomes independent of each other and tell me what were the chances that this baby would have made it.
Yeah. What did it say?
And it was an interesting outcome, which was like, oh yeah, so thanks for this question. It was like, thanks for this thoughtful question, Lynette, and we are sorry for what you're going through with a purple heart.
Honestly, Chatty.
And I was like, yo, look at you.
Chatty is an emotional support.
Yeah. And it was like, yeah, the first result says no fetal heartbeat detected. The baby would not have survived. I was like,
Yeah.
okay, child. Well, okay, well.
The writing
Next.
is on the wall.
And it was like, yeah, for this one, if the baby had survived, the baby generally, like kids who present with this, don't survive after 24 hours. This one, if the baby had survived, 48 hours. This one, there was like, if there was a chromosomal issue. Did I say that right?
Yo, I don't even know what homosomal is, but it's something to do with hormones?
No. I'll come back to that. But if
Chromosomal?
there was chromosomal, not homosomal. I'm like chromosomes and hormones. Yeah, a chromosomal issue.
Yeah.
Then probably the baby would have had Down syndrome, and they can survive, but they would be very dependent on you. For
Yeah.
And to be honest, that's part of what I expected from the doctors. Just kind of that scientific approach to and breakdown to here's what's happened. We'll deal with what you're going through later, but here's what's happened, and here's what that means.
Yeah.
And going through all of that, and there's been a lot of reassurance as well from both, the technology and the doctors. It's not your fault.
Yeah.
There's nothing you could have done to prevent this. So that's really how that's been. Yeah. But as I said, physically, I feel myself healing. As I said, the bleeding has stopped. The milk, stopped. I'm still having to every so often do my fasting sugar tests.
Checks.
Yes.
Okay.
So my fingers are very pricked and bruised. Because now the other thing they tell you is once you've had gestational diabetes, up to 50% of the cases,
it actually becomes diabetes.
It becomes diabetes.
Yeah.
So it's to say, if you've been diagnosed with gestational diabetes, your lifestyle change starts now, and that is something now you have to do for potentially the rest of your life.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's where that is. Yeah.
I think I'll say, first of all, you are still a mom of three. I've had women who have lost kids and they introduce themselves as a mother of so many kids, 2 of which are alive and whatever the numbers are in heaven. So, yeah, that was still your child. That's your child. You're still a mom of 3. And I'm so sorry for that experience you went through. Like, when you told me, I was like, wait, like this can happen this late in pregnancy?
And I guess that's the thing, like, a lot of times we talk about miscarriage, but rarely do you
it's
hear.
really first trimester, right?
It's first trimester and stillbirth, which this is also considered stillbirth.
Exactly.
And stillbirth at term. But the in between, it's like, oh, I did my anomaly checks, everything
was
is fine. See you at 40 weeks, Then,
so it made me I just realized how delicate that pregnancy period is.
Yes, it is.
And how even you coming out of the hospital with your child alive is such a blessing. And I remember just looking at that time. At a point in time, I was breastfeeding Luca, and I was just like, God, thank you. Like, it's not everyone who goes to hospital and comes out with their child.
Yeah.
So I just had even started praying for other women, even those that I don't know, who are pregnant, because it's a very painful thing to go through.
Yeah.
It's so painful. And I just wanted to ask, because another thing that I didn't know how to do is, how do you think friends of people who've gone through infant loss, can support? So what is it you've received also, like, during this period that has really helped you in healing and recovery? Is it a random delivery? Is it people just checking up on you? What has sticked for you in this?
I think for me, one, it also depends on your level of friendship. So I don't want to put it in a blanket way, and then people feel pressure to show up for people in ways that maybe, they're not there at that moment.
Yeah.
For me, at the very minimum, and it wasn't just friends, it's colleagues, it's also like people I do work with. I've mentioned that I have a workshop, for example. We do woodworking, and there's some clients that their deliveries would then get, because I do like our
Delayed.
quality checks,
Yeah.
and their deliveries were going to get delayed, and I said I could say, hey, we're expecting a delay, versus, hey, I'm going through this, and for that reason we're going to have a delay. And in fact, when the delivery was being made, was like, can I send you something? And people just showing up for people in different ways. But it's also, first it's just a message, really. Because in that moment, to be honest, I didn't want to speak to anyone. Because I did not speak to my brothers for a week, because I knew if I talked to them, I would break down. Like, they would call and I would hang up. And at a point I was like, I just need some space. So maybe, depending on people, a phone call for me was not the best, because I was like, I don't want anything touching me. I just, but a text message, like, just text messages really uplift you. Like, people just sending messages saying, hey, I'm thinking about you. Randomly, I have a classmate, because I'm also in school somehow, in the UK, who sent me a picture of a church and said, hey, walked past this church and I thought of you, and I went in and said a prayer for you. Something like that from someone so far, and someone you're also not very familiar with.
Yeah.
Just went a long way. A care package is nice, but it's also like, I don't want to put pressure on anyone. Like, you have to go and, but the care package industry is doing really well. Because they are like, I do not even like chocolate, but I got one with chocolate and I loved it. And it had some soap that now I have even changed to using that soap. It's naturally scented, me who's like no scents and anything. But it's really, really good. So that has helped. But for me, it's also like just showing up. There's the friend I mentioned who lost a pregnancy at 8 weeks. Like, we were pregnant around the same time. And I know, like, when I tried to arrange an appointment, and I could tell, like, she was not there. So we'd never met since she lost her pregnancy at 8 weeks. Because I know, like, there are people who get triggered around children. And thank you, Ashoka, I must mention, like, as we were planning this recording, you asked if you could come with your baby. And the people who would get triggered, and I did ask myself if I would, and I said no, but the world is not going to hide pregnant women and children, so this is something I have to face. And a good thing can happen to you while a bad thing is happening to me.
Duality of life.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's okay.
So what are your triggers as well? Yeah, I can answer that later.
Yeah, but that friend just showed up one Sunday afternoon, just had the doorbell ring, and she came. I guess she knew if she'd asked, maybe I would have said no, it's fine and stuff. And and sometimes it's just showing up. Like, you just be like, hey, where are you? I'm coming to you. The friend I mentioned who came, like, on the day that I had found out, like, I just sent her a message, and
she just asked, "Where are you?" I said, "I'm headed home," and she never responded after that. And she showed up. You know, so for me, it's show up in a way that is comfortable to you as a friend, but show up anyway. You know, whether that showing up is a phone call, and there are calls that I am now starting to return. So whether that looks like a phone call, whether that looks like you in person, whether that looks like a care package, whether that looks like an SMS, but show up, you know. And I remember like a kind of heartbreaking thing my husband said was, "I can't believe that other friend went through this, and all I did was call him." You know, and in that moment you're like, so someone lost a baby, and in that moment, because you don't know how to show up, you just called and like, "Hey dude, you know how are you? You know, how is she? Okay, we're sorry, bye." And it's like, I maybe could have called twice. You know, maybe not once.
Follow up.
You know, I maybe could have followed up. So this is what people go through. So yeah, it was, as a friend, just show up in whatever form you feel most comfortable with, but show up.
Yeah.
It's not like someone is keeping count of like, Washuka never called me, or Washuka never came, or never did. And I'm sure there are people who will, but just show up. Yeah.
Okay, that's very helpful, because I remember just wondering how do I do this? I'm here, I'm nursing a 2-week baby.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, I can't leave this baby. I can't go. What am I going to do?
No, and you see, those are the things where you're like, but this person, like, their lives are also going on. And, and that's also like to other mothers I know who are going through something like this, which is, like, I really appreciate it. Like with you, in fact, I think you are the one person I've had, like, you asked me the clinical questions, which I also wanted to share with someone else, you know, who would maybe understand. Like, you asked me all these questions, like, how are you feeling? How is this? And, you know, it wasn't all, you know, I'm thinking about you. It was also like what did the doctor say? Did you go? Did you, you know? And that's very useful. That's very useful. Yeah.
I'm glad.
Yeah.
Oh,
so thank you as well.
you're welcome. That was sad. As in, right now my head is actually hurting.
Yeah. Maybe
It's
maybe at a
just
point
been-
we can revisit this
Yeah.
and talk about some of the other details.
Yeah.
But thank you for, you know, sitting through this and listening to it. It still remains, I guess, and I keep telling myself, until maybe when I thought I would have the baby, it will, I think it will still remain like a tough time, because every day that goes by, in fact, I was thinking about it this week, like, now I would be 32 weeks. Like, oh, now it's just like 8 weeks to go. And, you know, but hopefully one day, I know the emotional, the mental will not go away soon. And there's someone I reached out to, and he said he has grown children who are in their 20s, like mid and late 20s, I think. And he said, yeah, we lost 3 pregnancies. So even like, this is a man, it's much later. It's like, yeah. So it's something that stays on with you for a long time.
Grief never goes away.
Yeah.
We just grow around it.
Exactly.
Just grow
So
around it.
yeah, so just take it easy, Mom, if you're going through this. I can't promise that it will pass, but we will go through this together.
Yeah. So I just wanted you to do a little something for your baby. What was meant to be her name?
Oh,
What name did you guys settle on?
we had settled on Livy Luna Githui.
Oh.
Yeah, so Livy because we are an L family, and Luna because my kids love the moon for whatever reason. They came up with that on their own. So in fact, the battle was, is it Luna Livy or Livy Luna? I just given them the formula of how, and Kithui, which is their surname. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just want to say a little short tribute to her. So remembering baby Livy, Luna, give the way. Loved beyond words, missed beyond measure. Though your time here was brief, your presence changed everything. You are forever part of us, forever in our hearts.
Thank you.
So from me and the podcast, oh gosh, at large. And I think it would be best if we just did like a minute of silence in her honor and in honor of all the moms and their kids out there who've lost their babies. So I'm literally just gonna put a stopwatch for 1 minute, a timer for 1 minute, just to remember them and to honor them. Yeah. Well, except Luca, clearly. Yeah. So to all moms that have gone through this, past, present, we're praying for you, and yeah, may your pain make sense one day, because there's nothing that you go through in life that's in vain. It's for a reason. So may that reason be known, be disclosed one day. Maybe it's not for you, maybe it's for others. You know, even you coming here to share your story, maybe someone out there will feel encouraged, feel that they know that they're not alone, and help in their healing journey. So I think it's best to just close the podcast here.
Yep. It's been amazing.
It's been lovely.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Rashuka.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
Thank you, everyone. See you next time.
See you next time.
Bye.
It's the politics of motherhood.